Today, I wanted to talk about a few key things that are important on your journey to achieving financial freedom fast that technically aren't financial related at their core, but they do impact your journey on building wealth. So let's get into it. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Financial Freedom Fast Lane. And you know it. The quicker you get to your dream life, the longer you get to live it. And I'm your host, George Acheampong, and I'm super excited for this episode because it's a little bit different, right? Typically, we're talking numbers, we're talking tactics, we're talking strategy. But today, I wanted to talk about a few key things that are important on your journey to achieving financial freedom fast that technically aren't financial related at their core, but they do impact your journey on building wealth. So let's get into it, right? Because these are the intangibles, these are the qualitative things, these are the soft skills that are required to achieve excellence in your life in general, but definitely will impact your journey to building wealth. All right, so the first one on the list, in my opinion, is the most important: emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is critical in your life and critical on your journey towards building wealth. Here's why. When you think about building wealth, it's going to consist of making deals, making good decisions, establishing great relationships. And when you don't have emotional intelligence, it can completely blow up all those scenarios, right? Let's say that you're in negotiations with a deal, someone says something that rubs you the wrong way, you don't have control over your emotions, and then you blow up the deal for something that was just simply a misunderstanding, right? Let's say that you are in partnership with somebody, right? And you guys are navigating the relationship and something happens and you aren't able to articulate exactly how you're feeling or what you're thinking. You lash out at that person and now that business partnership suffers, right? So emotional intelligence is a key ingredient to your financial success. It is literally the most important thing that I plan to teach my son, because it's like, hey, at the end of the day, behavior is just unexpressed emotion. A person doesn't know how to express themselves, and as a result, they act out. As a result of acting out, a lot of things can happen, right? And for the sake of this video, you could blow up the deal, you could mess up your money. So emotional intelligence is a key soft skill on your journey towards building wealth. All right, number 2, resilience is a key skill on your journey towards building wealth, right? The journey is not going to be easy. There's going to be several points in the journey where you want to give up, where things get too hard. You feel like, why am I doing this? And resilience is going to be the thing that keeps you going. Jay-Z once quoted that the genius thing that we did is that we did not give up, right? The genius thing that we did is that we did not give up. And so some of y'all are so close to your breakthrough, but if you don't have resilience when life be lifing or things happen, then it'll be very hard for you to make it. If y'all only knew the half of the situations where I could just be like, man, I ain't got it, and it would be justifiable, right? For the things that have happened to me along my journey towards building wealth and just life in general. But you have to remain resilient. You have to stay the course if you want to build long-term wealth. All right, number 3, patience, right? Patience is, I know I said emotional intelligence was the most important, but patience might be right up there with it, right? Because when you're building wealth, right, you're going to want to get there fast, right? Like you're going to want to chase the shiny balls. And sometimes it's like you're going to see things like, man, if I do that, I could probably skip over some steps. But you have to remain patient on your journey towards building wealth, because the goal is to stay here, not play here, right? That's a tweetable. The goal is to stay here, not play here. What I mean by that is anybody can do something one time. Anybody can get lucky. Anybody can run a play, right? But over here, we're not about running plays. We're about creating plans, right? And we have to stay for a long time. That's going to require patience. It's going to require like, hey, look, I could do that, but that could knock me out the game. I could do that, but that doesn't align with my risk profile. I'm gonna stay in my lane. I'm gonna stay patient. I'm gonna stay down. I'm not gonna try to flip my money every chance I get. I'm gonna do what works. And sometimes building wealth is boring, right? Building wealth can be boring. But if you understand the long-term goal and you stay patient on your journey, it is a key ingredient in the recipe towards building wealth. All right, another key ingredient, another key soft skill on your journey towards building wealth is focus. Focus, right? In today's day and age, there's no shortage of information on should you do Turo, should you do Airbnb, should you do other forms of real estate, should you trade stocks, should you trade options? Like there's just, the sky is the limit, right? And it's not that any of those are inherently bad. It's not that you shouldn't consider doing a combination of those things. But truth be told, if you're not far enough along in your journey, you should be focused on really building up one revenue stream. Oftentimes we hear this myth about multiple streams. But the truth is, sometimes you have to give up a stream to create a waterfall. What's the point of having multiple streams if the streams ain't streaming, right? You gotta have multiple six figures, right? In my opinion, in a mainstream. And it's like, okay, cool. Now I can take that money and I can go buy income. The myth is that we need to be doing 7 different things and being everything to everybody, right? That's not it. The whole objective around having multiple streams of income is buying it, right? Like you're literally going to buy the income. When you make investments in the stock market, you're buying income. When you invest in real estate, you're buying cash flow. When you invest in businesses that you own but do not run, you're buying cash flow. So the goal is not to do a million things, it's to get laser focused, build an amazing business or become world-class at your career, even if you're a working professional. And because you're personal value, you make more money. Because you make more money, you have a lot more excess. Because you have a lot more excess, you can throw it at assets, right? So focus is a key soft skill on your journey towards building wealth. All right, commitment. Commitment is a big one, right? And it kind of is a derivative of focus, right? But you have to stay 10 toes down, as they say, right? You got to stay 10 toes down because, right? If you don't stay committed to your goals, if you don't stay committed to the journey, if you don't stay committed to what you said you were going to do, it's going to be very hard to build wealth, right? So focusing on what you need to do is one thing, and then staying committed to that journey and seeing it through is extremely important, right? Some of us can't build wealth because we're just hopping around from thing to thing, and we want to just do everything, right? We want to have our hands in a little bit of everything because the thing that we're doing right now maybe isn't getting the results fast enough. So now we want to go try that, right? So you have to stay committed on your journey towards building wealth. All right, and last but not least, adaptability, right? Adaptability. You have to be flexible. You have to be agile, right? When the facts change, so should you. Now, that might seem a little contradictory to focus and commitment, but the truth of the matter is, even if you're focused and committed, right, you have to pay attention to what's happening in the world, right? Like, how is the world innovating? And it doesn't mean that like you have to chase every shiny ball, but you have to understand like, okay, if the world is changing, I might want to pay attention. And if the facts say that I need to lean into something else or iterate what I'm doing, then you have to be flexible and agile. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're reinventing yourself. Sometimes it might just be that you're refining, making something better, right? Changing the way that you do it, right? There's a lot of ways to quote unquote switch things up that are still within the guardrails of staying focused or being committed. For example, I've technically done nothing else outside of being a financial service professional for the past 12, 13 years. But the way in which I've done it has evolved, right? My pricing structure, my service model, how I reach people, podcast, like there's been different nuances, right? And variations and iterations and adjustments, but at its core, I'm doing the same thing. And not to say that you shouldn't switch up if you have the facts. Another one of my favorite quotes is, don't allow your resume to have you resuming a life that you no longer want, right? And so it's like, Just because you've been known for something, just because you do something doesn't mean that you have to keep doing it if it doesn't make sense. But you need to be extra clear that this no longer makes sense, right? It can't be I'm just bored, or I'm tired, or I'm impatient, or I don't want to be committed. It's like, you know what? I've done my due diligence. I've done what I came to do here. And now it's time to lean into this. I know it, right? And that's okay too, right? So two things can be true. You should remain focused and committed to your goals. But at the same token, right, if something changes, if something evolves, it's all okay to evolve with it, right? It's okay to adapt. It's okay to be flexible. It's okay to approach it differently than you may have thought you originally would have, right? So I'm not going to keep you guys long today. Again, this isn't a strategy-driven episode. I really just want you to understand these soft skills that are extremely important on your journey towards building wealth. Work on your adaptability, work on your commitment, work on your focus, work on your emotional intelligence, right? Work on those things that seem a little bit intangible, but will give you your edge when it comes to building wealth. And as always, remember, freedom is for sale if you're willing to pay the price. Peace.